Imagine it's 1993. You're curled up on the couch at your parents' house, home for a surprise visit. You're on the phone with a friend catching up on old times, when suddenly another call cuts in. You switch lines, expecting maybe to hear the voice of another friend or relative who has heard that you're in town. Instead, you hear this.
Hello? Here's Gary's sudden break there.
Like many mysteries, this one begins with events that at first seem trivial, unsettling, yes, but not yet terrifying. It was almost as if the universe or something in it was laying groundwork for what was to come. Back in 1992, Gary Sudbrink attended a family wedding on Long Island, New York. At age 27, Gary was a US Air Force captain stationed in Texas, home on leave to celebrate his older brother Stephen's nuptials. The reception was joyous, filled with laughter and clinking of glasses. But when Stephen finally got a moment with Gary, he chastised his brother for a stunt Gary had supposedly pulled that very morning. According to Stephen, on his drive to the wedding, Gary had pulled up alongside him on the highway, behind the wheel of his own car. Stephen swore that Gary's car, the same make and model Gary drove in Texas, had appeared out of nowhere, and its driver, a mirror image of Gary, had made bizarre faces at him before speeding away. Gary was dumbfounded. He hadn't been driving on Long Island at all that morning. In fact, he didn't even have a car in New York. He'd flown in for the wedding and left his vehicle back in Texas. Yet Stephen was adamant about what he saw. Both brothers were perplexed, but with a wedding to attend, they eventually shrugged it off as a case of mistaken identity. Little did they know that this odd incident, a stranger in Gary's car, a double of him on the road, would later take on a far more disturbing significance. A year later, it felt like the first puzzle piece of a much larger enigma. February 1993. Bill Clinton was president. The X-Files wouldn't premiere until the year later, and caller ID was still a fancy new feature on some home phones. 27-year-old Gary Sudbrink, a US Air Force captain stationed in Texas, decided to take a few days off to visit his family in Long Island, New York. It was a spur-of-the-moment trip. He hadn't even told his parents he was coming, let alone his friends. Little did he know that secrecy would set the stage for something truly peculiar. Gary's trip home was unusual from the start. The night before he flew out, as he packed his bags in San Antonio, he heard a loud whirring outside. Stepping out onto his balcony, he couldn't believe his eyes. A helicopter was hovering almost unnaturally close, just 20 feet off the ground, with no markings visible in the darkness. For a few seconds it lingered as if watching him. Then, before Gary could grab his glasses for a better look, the chopper lifted and vanished into the night sky. It left him rattled. Why a helicopter here now? Gary shrugged it off, maybe a military drill or someone lost, and went back to his packing. The next day at the airport, the weirdness continued. As Gary waited for his flight, a stranger with a clipboard approached. He was friendly enough, asking where Gary was headed. Gary answered New York, and the man's questions got oddly personal. What's your name? Who are you visiting? How long will you stay? Gary felt a prickling on the back of his neck. Something was off. The man claimed it was for a marketing survey, but it didn't feel that way. Gary gave short replies until thankfully his section was called to board. He figured that was the end of it. But once on the plane, as passengers settled in, Gary looked up and, what do you know? A different man, also holding a notebook, plopped down right next to him. This guy was even more intrusive. "What did you say your name was? How do you spell that? When are you coming back?" He fired off one question after another. Gary's heart began to race. Was he being followed? It clearly felt like it. Suddenly, a flight attendant approached. "Sir, this isn't your seat, is it?" she said to the nosy passenger. The man sheepishly stood, but did not leave Gary alone. He moved to an empty seat by the emergency exit, which was still within earshot. As the plane took off, he continued his interrogation from across the aisle until the attendant firmly told him to return to his assigned spot at the back of the aircraft. Gary was left with his head spinning. Who on earth were these two clipboard welding clowns, and why were they so interested in him? When the plane touched down in New York, Gary was thoroughly rattled. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had been targeted in some way. He arrived at his parents' house on Long Island that evening, February 8, 1993. The surprise visit delighted his mom and dad, but Gary had some surprises of his own to share. He recounted the inexplicable helicopter hovering outside his Texas home and the two inquisitive men who'd approached him during his journey. To his astonishment, Gary's father responded with yet another odd incident from that very day. That afternoon, a helicopter had been circling over their Long Island neighbourhood, and at one point it hovered directly above the Sudbrink family home before flying off. Gary's father described it as dark-coloured and unusually low, details that sent a shiver down Gary's spine. A helicopter in Texas, then another, or the same one. In New York a few hours later. It was as if someone or something had been monitoring Gary's entire trip. At this point, Gary's father decided to come clean about something that had been bothering him. A few weeks prior, Gary's father and Uncle Tom had taken a road trip to West Virginia to visit the Green Bank Observatory. Both men were avid UFO enthusiasts, and Green Bank had recently installed a massive new radio telescope to replace the one that mysteriously collapsed in 1988. During their drive, the two claimed to have witnessed an unexplained aerial sighting, a bright object in the sky that moved in a way no plane or satellite should. Gary's father was convinced they had seen a UFO. Gary, however, had always been a skeptic about flying saucers. He gently suggested his dad probably misidentified something mundane. They agreed to disagree, and Gary didn't think much more about it at the time. But his family's UFO obsession, combined with the day's strange events, was about to collide with Gary's life in a way none of them expected. After dinner, with these eerie occurrences still whirling in his thoughts, Gary decided to call an old friend. At around 10:30, he phoned his buddy Mike, hoping for a normal conversation to take things off his mind. Mike answered, but instead of a warm greeting, Mike's first words were a puzzled, "Already?" Gary asked what he meant. Mike sounded slightly annoyed as he replied, "We just talked like 20 minutes ago. You already have something else to say?" Gary's blood ran cold. He insisted to Mike that they hadn't spoken earlier, that this call was the first time that they'd chatted in weeks. Mike was now just as confused. He swore that Gary had called him about 20 minutes before, at around 10:10 p.m, and that the caller's voice, it sounded exactly like Gary's. Fake Gary had mentioned arriving in New York, even claiming he had flown into LaGuardia Airport and was recovering from a cold. Gary, of course, had actually landed at JFK and was perfectly healthy. The two friends quickly realised something was very wrong. Someone impersonating Gary had telephoned Mike out of the blue, and that someone somehow knew Gary was in New York. A trip nobody was supposed to know about. As Gary grappled with his unsettling revelation, a beep interrupted the call. The telltale signal of another incoming call on the line. It was now about 10:30. "Hang on, Mike," Gary said. "There's someone on the other line, I'll call you back." He clicked over to answer the second call, expecting perhaps another friend who'd heard he was in town. What he heard instead made his heart hammer in his chest. A distant-sounding voice, low and distorted, oozed through the receiver.
Hello?
Yeah.
There's Gary's son Frank in there.
Yeah, who's this? Steven? Are you playing games with me or what? Huh? Steven, if you're playing games, I'm going to kick your ass.
So how long are you going to be back from Texas?
Huh?
You're being impersonated by the other voice.
Yeah, this is you, Steven, you idiot. You're pissing me off. Jerk. I'm going to get you on... Let's see what it says. Review. One new call out of area. Is Steven out of the area?
How long are you going to be back from Texas?
Wait, say that again?
You're being impersonated by the other voice.
Wait, hold on. Is Steven out of the calling area or what? What do you mean you don't know? He's in Queens. Who are you talking? I don't know who the fuck.
Hello?
Hello?
There's Gary's son Frank in there.
Who is this? Sounds like a freaking robot.
So
Hello?
how long are you going to be back from Texas?
What was that again, sir?
You're being impersonated by the other voice.
Oh, be quiet, huh? Sorry, would you see that again? Hello? Being impersonated by what voice?
Hello?
Yeah. Hello?
There's Gary's son Frank in there.
Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, what is your question? I'll answer it.
So how long are you going to be back from Texas?
How long?
You're being impersonated by the other voice.
Right. When am I coming back? Is that your question? Okay, there was a break. Hold on. You want to know when I'm coming back to Texas? Oh, is that your question?
So how long are you going to be back from Texas?
How long am I going to be back from Texas? That question doesn't make any sense.
By the other voice.
Okay. I'll be coming back eventually. I can't tell you when. You should know that question, the answer to the questions, because you seem to know more about me than I do. You know what I'm saying?
Are you an intergalactic person?
Are you a space alien?
Sounds like he hung up.
I can't believe this.
He hung up, Gary.
See if he comes back.
All right, I'll hang up.
Gary slowly put down the phone. His parents looked at him wide-eyed in the dim light of the kitchen. What on earth was that? Gary tried to convince himself it had to be a prank. Maybe his brother or a friend using a voice changer. But Stephen wasn't known for playing pranks. and the situation felt like it was far more elaborate than a simple joke call. Besides, why would Stephen have called Mike pretending to be Gary earlier? Nothing was adding up. Gary picked the phone back up and dialed Mike to explain what just happened, but before he could finish the call, the phone rang again. It was now about 11:10 p.m, roughly 40 minutes after the first weird call.
What is your question? Yes, speaking. Yes. Can I answer any questions for you?
Are you back from Texas?
Not back yet, no.
How long are you going to be back from Texas?
Let me answer. First, you tell me, where are you calling from?
This is Gary Sudbury.
Yeah, why don't you tell me where you're calling from?
Who is this?
What do you mean, who is this? You should know who it is. It's me, Gary. Wait, let me ask you this question. Where are you calling from? Okay, I'll be back. Excuse me? I can't hear too well. Yeah, it is a full moon out. That's true. Could you identify yourself? Identify yourself. Why are you calling me? Excuse me? I cannot hear too well.
Get on the other phone, better.
Hold on, let me switch phones. Okay. Okay, hold on. Now, who are you?
Keep an eye in the sky, he said.
Keep an eye in the sky?
Yeah.
Yes, can I talk to him?
Shh.
I had a sighting over.
Okay, hold on. Say that. Repeat that again. Please repeat. Okay.
Near Orion.
Near Orion. Holy mackerel. Tonight or guess when?
The full moon.
They told
So, double from here.
Repeat.
Tell them I like you.
Okay. Repeat last word. I'm hearing static.
Tell them I like you.
He hung up.
He hung up.
Hello?
You've just heard the audio, but I want to break it down because even with the distortion, even with the mechanical stilted delivery, what was said in that call is deeply unsettling. Let's start with the words out of the caller's mouth. Is this Gary Sudbrink? The voice is flat, emotionless, almost robotic, but the question is precise, it's direct. Whoever or whatever was on the other end of the line knew exactly who they were speaking to. This wasn't a wrong number. It feels targeted. Gary confirms his identity, trying to force a response, but the caller doesn't engage with conversation in the way a normal person would. Instead, they follow up with something even stranger. Are you back from Texas? And that's when I'm sure Gary's heart skipped a beat, because remember, his trip home to New York was unannounced. No one outside his immediate circle knew he was flying in. So how did this caller, this thing, know where he had been? And more importantly, why did it care? Now, Gary does what any of us would do. He presses for answers. He demands to know where the caller is, who they are. And what does he get in response? Not an introduction, not an explanation. Instead, he gets a cryptic instruction: keep an eye on the skies. You can also hear the caller saying the word Orion. And then the caller added one more final detail: the full moon. And sure enough, a full moon was shining over the snowy yard. We also hear Gary's father, who had been listening on the other line, mutter in disbelief, "Holy mackerel, keep an eye on the sky near Orion." And finally, perhaps most unsettling of all, we hear this person say, "show double of you." Perhaps a nod to a year prior when Gary and his brother had that interaction at the wedding. I think that wraps up everything, so let's get back into the story. Despite the late hour, none of them were ready to unplug the phone. And indeed, the phone rang a third time that night. 11:38 p.m, Gary answered, with his parents silently listening in again.
Hello?
Keep an eye on the sky.
Okay. Should I go out right now? Right now?
The full moon.
Okay, see, I'm not sure where Orion is now, but we'll go outside.
Show double from here.
It would show double from me.
The Sudbring family hardly slept that night. They clustered in the living room, lights on, speculating in hushed tones about what these calls could mean. 3 calls in the one night from a mechanical, perhaps recorded voice that knew Gary's secret travel plans, referenced cosmic sights, and hinted at someone impersonating him. All of it intersecting eerily with the family's past experiences: the other Gary on the highway, the UFO sighting, the helicopters. It felt like pieces of a puzzle clicking together, but the picture they formed was almost too outlandish to believe. Gary was equal parts of angry and disturbed. If it was a hoax, someone was going to great lengths to torment him. If it wasn't a hoax, well, the alternatives were nightmare fuel. The next day, Tuesday, February 9th, 1993, Gary must have been tempted to leave town early, but he stayed, perhaps partly hoping the mystery caller might ring again and provide some answers. Sure enough, that evening, at 10:21 p.m, the phone rang for a 4th time.
Yes, this is me. Can I speak to you? Can I ask why you're... Yes, can I ask why you're calling? Can I please ask... Yes, this is. Yes, that is me.
To be within this planet.
Say that again?
This planet.
Leave?
We come
I'm staying right here.
to be within this planet.
Is this a joke or what?
The many to be contacted as the same with you.
I have to think about that. I'd like to see you.
The many Hey, let me tell you something. I've been listening to you, and I've had contacts with you.
Government interference? You have? Please explain what type of interference. Okay.
Visitations to be disrupted by them. Appears. Sun will rise from dark side of world. No. The sun will rise from the dark side of the moon.
Okay, what branch of the government? What should I do?
Government interference. Visitations to be disrupted by them.
Okay. Is that good for me or bad? They hung up.
Yeah.
Gary lowered the speakerphone. In the silence that followed, him, his uncle and father sat stunned. Gary's father finally exhaled and asked, "Did you get that on tape?" Gary nodded. They had captured it. But what had they witnessed? A genuine communication from extraterrestrials, a government experiment, or an elaborate cruel prank perpetrated by some anonymous trickster with nothing better to do? Gary's father and uncle were inclined to believe that they'd spoken in some fashion to extraterrestrial beings. After all, the caller's words explicitly suggested an alien origin. "We come to be within this planet," and even warned of government meddling, as if referencing the Men in Black lore. It was everything they had ever believed playing out over their own telephone line. Gary, however, remained hesitant to jump to that conclusion. He collected the tapes containing the recorded calls and carefully stored them. If this was real, then someone or something had just delivered a set of messages that he could barely begin to decipher. In the days and weeks that followed, Gary tried to investigate the calls. He spoke with the phone company and even some Air Force contacts about tracing the source. Frustratingly, any attempt to trace the mysterious number led to a dead end. In fact, Gary would later mention that a trace suggested that calls might have somehow originated from his own house line, a technical impossibility unless someone was physically using their phone, which no one was, or had manipulated the phone network. Such trickery could be within the reach of a very determined prankster, or notably certain government agencies with advanced capabilities at the time. The idea that calls were coming from inside the house is chilling, but in this case it likely meant the signal was being bounced or masked to appear that way. If true, that finding lent some credence to the notion of a clandestine operation. With no clear answers, the Sudbrinks were left to ponder the experience on their own. Gary eventually returned to Texas and resumed his duties, his life forever marked by those 2 nights of phone terror. His family continued to discuss and analyse the events in the years after. They weren't the only ones. Once the audio recordings surfaced in UFO and paranormal circles, the Sudbrink phone calls became a minor legend. Enthusiasts traded copies of the tape, and snippets of the calls have been replayed at UFO conferences and in podcasts as possible evidence of alien contact. To many, the call's content references to space, Orion visitations and interference by the government point straight to an extraterrestrial explanation. The fact that Gary was an Air Force officer only fuels these theories. Perhaps he was deliberately chosen or being monitored because of something he knew, or perhaps his family's interest in UFOs drew the attention of something out there. The UFO angle was further supported by the Sudbrink's elders' conviction. Gary's father openly referred to the caller as an intergalactic person and truly felt it was alien intelligence that was on the line. Uncle Tom too believed that their own prior UFO sighting was connected, as if the callers were following up on that contact. In UFO lore, men in black often show up after sightings to silence or confuse witnesses. Here, instead of a face-to-face visit, could the men in black or some clandestine government unit have been calling Gary, delivering disjointed warnings? The mechanical, monotonous nature of the voice is actually typical Men in Black reports, where entities often speak in a robotic and unnatural manner. There's also a theory that as these phone calls went on, the person's voice seemed to be getting weaker with each successive call, as if whatever it was running low on energy. If it was a hoax, who would do it? Why would you do it? Gary's brother Stephen was an early suspect in his mind, but Stephen consistently denied any involvement, and he lacked any motive to terrorise his own family. Friend Mike clearly seemed genuinely confused on the phone, not like someone playing along. Perhaps a friend or a colleague from Texas who somehow learned of Gary's trip, yet Gary hadn't told anybody. So where does that leave us? Over 30 years have passed and the Sudbrink phone calls remain as mysterious as ever. No one has ever come forward to claim responsibility for the prank, and no evidence has emerged of a larger government plot. The tapes have been scrutinised by audio experts and UFO buffs alike, yet no consensus has been reached. They are as much of an enigma in 2025 as they were in 1993. Perhaps that's fitting. Some mysteries managed to hold on to their secrets. As Gary Sudbrink's story shows, when you pull back the receiver and hear that faint crackle of static, you never truly know who or what might be on the other end of the line. Although I have to say, if this happened to me, I would not have the patience to listen to this person on the phone. I straight away would hang up. So that's why they're not calling me. And then I wonder why I don't have these experiences. And can I just say, for the younger listeners here, that this type of phone call happening in 1993 compared to 2025 would have been a million times creepier. And hopefully people around my age will get that one. There are parts of these audio recordings where you can clearly hear a tape being rewound and then played again. I don't think anyone could deny that. However, who the hell is doing this? Why are they doing it? What is going on? And then all the strange events leading up to his visit. Anyway, listeners, I hope you liked this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you for listening to another episode of Scary.
With Cricket Wireless, you can count on reliable nationwide 5G. Because Cricket Wireless is on the AT&T network, which means you can start listening to that new album that just dropped at home, while running errands, and at the gym, without any hiccups. Find plans with unlimited data for every lifestyle and price point. Switch to Cricket today.
That feeling when you check your bank account and your paycheck's days away. And of course, your calendar's all... Good news. With Chase Secure Banking, your direct deposit hits your bank account up to 2 days faster. So when your friends are like, and your bills go, you have the peace your deposit brings. And the best part? There's no monthly service fee for 17 to 24-year-olds. Thanks to Chase Secure Banking.
For Chase Secure Checking only, eligible direct deposits may be credited up to 2 business days early, depending on when the payer submits the transaction. Member FDIC.
They say if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. At Amica Insurance, we know what matters most to you. And and we work even harder to protect it, together. As a mutual insurance company, we're built for our customers and prioritize your needs. Amica, empathy is our best policy. Visit amica.com and get a quote today.
Plan B made over-the-counter emergency contraception legal more than 20 years ago. It's a safe, effective backup birth control option that helps prevent pregnancy before it starts by temporarily delaying ovulation. Plan B is the #1 OBGYN recommended brand and the only one you can find at all major retailers in all 50 U.S. states. There's no minimum age requirement and you don't need an ID to buy it. You can order it through DoorDash and other major delivery platforms too. That's freedom to be. Use as directed.